Jah, it's a pleasure to see you today. I know you're very, very busy. One of the things that you've got coming up alongside this album is a bunch of UK tour dates, and I wonder how's your approach to touring changed at this point in your life, where there's lots going on all the time. How do you feel about these upcoming dates and just touring in general at this point?
Oh, well, I really enjoy being on stage. Is a joy.
Mm.
Hanging out with the musicians backstage, they're good lads in my band, is a
Yeah.
joy. Sometimes, obviously, the travelling gets everyone down. I mean, even the younger players get fed up, stuck in traffic and all that stuff. In a way, it's easier for me because this present band came to me a few years ago and they saw how I was struggling to recruit and keep good quality crew. And they said to me, listen, you don't need to worry about us. John, listen, all you need to do is tell us where we need to be and when we need to be. That was a huge thing for me. It's like, wow, I've never worked with grown-up musicians before. So that was incredible, you know. So that kind of that attitude makes my life so much easier. And of course, they'd never asked for more money or anything. But because of that, you're able to give them more money. And funny enough, ended up recruiting crew again, which have been good on the whole since then anyway. But basically, you need to have a small, tight unit to make it viable to tour at my level. You know, plan the kind of venues, 500 kind of venues, 300, 500, and lower even. We need to, you want to fill the rooms. It's all good, but the budgets get tighter every year because the expenses are going up and up and up. You know, and the fees you receive are not. They stay the same, but as ever, your costs go up. So you need to run a tight ship. But yeah, I really look forward to it. I really enjoy it. It's fantastic, direct thing of being able to play to people and bond with them, communicate with them, always push it to the limit every night in whatever way is fantastic. I used to not like live as much as being in the studio. Being in the studio was where I wanted to live, was the studio. I loved it. And recording live was something you went out and did. It was fun. You kind of had to do it to promote a record, maybe. You wasn't that bothered, you know. Yeah. But now, in order to make a living, you have to tour.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, of course.
It's completely reversed, the situation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly a change, and you've seen a lot of different changes in your time, of course, and different levels of success, John. And I think that's my next question for you is how has your definition of success changed, given, you know, again, how you started your career and, you know, 40 plus years deep in now? How has your definition of success as an artist and as a person changed, if they're one and the same things?
No, not really. I always wanted to be kind of true to myself. It was all vague abstracts, but they're kind of definite in their own way as well. So I had a certain sound in mind, and I wanted to. I was always moving towards capturing that sound, and then it changes, and it takes you somewhere else, and you're very true to that. And there's times when you might have major record deals, and you do trade-offs. You protect the album, the overall sound. You give the record company the singles and the remixes they want. No good, to my mind, ever came from those remixes apart from Andy Weatherall. There was nice remixes, but nothing that ever. It was just wasting money. That's what I felt at the time. My money, ultimately, I suppose. It was like, keep the record company happy. Let them do the remixes. Let them have the singles. And as long as I can protect the albums and the body of work, that's fine. And of course, I've run my own labels for years, so that means I can do whatever the hell I like. So it's been wonderful. There were times I felt hard done by. I hadn't had more film soundtracks, but I came to realise I'd been so lucky, just doing exactly what I wanted and not having to compromise for some dickhead film director. You know, not that they're all dickheads, and I like movies, so don't get me wrong, but you know, I've been true to my vision. So that to me is being able to live life on your own terms. Is a wonderful thing, because most people in the world don't manage to do that to varying degrees. You know, most people are waiting for that next bowl of rice. They don't know where that's what's on their mind. Feeding their kids or having clean drinking water. So I'm up in the higher echelons of, you know, although I resent the English public school boys and schoolgirl tossers that run this country, and I think they're a waste of space, waste of money, etc., etc. I overall feel very grateful to having the place I do in the world.
Yeah, and that's good to hear, man. And you know, and it's a testament to your work ethic as well. And as an extension of that question, I did want to ask about legacy. Now, obviously, if you look at, say, you know, Martin's legacy or Sinead O'Connor, some of the people that you've worked with, they have left a legacy. Do you concern yourself much with the idea of legacy as a performer, as an artist? You mentioned obviously the body of work there. Do you think much about the legacy and that sort of thing?
No, I mean, I'm not speaking for anybody else, only for me. Only for me. I couldn't give a fuck about my legacy.
Right.
It's a load of bollocks, because when I'm dead and gone, what the fuck would it matter to me? Because when I'm dead and gone, I'm dead and gone. It doesn't matter, you know? And as soon as you start worrying about legacy, you're in the wrong fucking business. That's the language of the Rotary Club. And I believe in my legacy, and I hope that after my time, my family will continue my legacy. You know, it's completely, and it's amazing how many people in this business, a lot of the English public schoolboy types, you break bread with them and all that, God bless them, and you realise how establishment they are. So they might be involved in projects that are singing about, you know, destroy the bourgeois classes. We live beyond the realms of Christianity and decency, and they've got their mascara on or whatever bollocks. But actually, absolutely pro-establishment. I mean, really, not by default. Actually, very pro-establishment. They send their kids to private schools. They never moan much about Brexit that I ever heard them. You know, etc., etc. You know, so you know. That's kind of what you're dealing with. And of course, they're very concerned with their position. And that's really what legacy is about, your position in life. So it's all very middle class and all that. Yeah. I'm working class boy. You're mucking, you do what you do. Yeah. People like what you do. They don't like what you do, whatever. So to answer the question, I really think anyone who worries about legacy, I'm much more worried about, my thumb getting better to play the music today for the people. You know, that's... You know, it's all I care about. You know,
that's a different answer to what I've heard before from different artists, John. So thank you for that, because it does resonate, and I think it resonates with a lot of people.
Doesn't mean a shit. If other people like what I do and they want to formulate concepts around that, it's wonderful, and I'd much rather be like than not. But I despise it when people are too bothered about their positions. Yeah. You know, I personally can't stand it. And that was what was great, by the way, with Sinead. I never, ever got the impression that was one of the marvellous things about Sinead O'Connor. She was absolutely down to earth and didn't, you know, just so connected and down to earth, and wasn't somebody bothered about position in life. It was a very real, lovely person who, of course, was super talented, you know.
Absolutely, yeah, very real person. And that's what I get from speaking to you, is that, you know, even though you've achieved a lot of things, you've maintained that kind of work ethic, that graft, as we say in Yorkshire, that sort of grafter, temperament, where you just want to get on with stuff and do things, which I think is that's it.
That's my view. And those boys I'm talking about in my band, they're Northerners, and two of them from Yorkshire. Yeah. So a lot of my musicians have been out of Huddersfield for some reason the last few years. They're tough Northern boys, pleasant boys, good fellas. They get on with it, and they've got an attitude. Tell us where to go, and we can't be bothered with namby-pamby crew that, you know, we'll be on time. We'll lift the amps and put them around and all that. You know, that's not knocking anyone from me. My bass tech's just retired from ill health. He's another Yorkshire guy, so I'm not. You know, it's just, you know, a general kind of take on it. They're tough, down to earth, get on with it. And that's like me. I'm out the East End. I've done ordinary jobs, and I just like, for me, I'd much rather be out today in a community thing I do in South London with all the people. I'm like part of the club there. It's a big group of people that have formed now. It started to combat loneliness, and we're all together. I'd much rather be with them and having a laugh with them than stuck in some ivory tower somewhere with loads of money or whatever, and worrying yourself with neurosis all day, you know.
Yeah. And I think that, again, is a testament to where you're at. And I want to talk about the new record and some of the singles from that, you know, in a second. And, you know, obviously that is very current to where you're at the moment. But before I do that, I wanted to sort of ask you to sort of look back a little bit with me, you know, as to where you were at the beginning of your career, what have you learned about yourself? I feel like you've been through a lot of different experiences. You've met a lot of different people. Some people you'll have liked, some people you won't have done. What have you learned about yourself in the context of your music and creativity since the beginning of your career? How would you say you've changed and developed, John? What have you learned about yourself through your career?
Well, your personality is always changing. So I'm not the same person exactly I was last Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
If I'm still alive and kicking later today, and it ain't a given, come 4 o'clock today, I'll be a slightly different person because you're changing sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Is there any component that doesn't change? Well, in a way, there must be. The component, the observer of sorts, your ordinary awareness of self, which is always there. We might not be allowing ourselves to be conscious of it, but that was there when I was a little baby. That was there 17 years ago. That was there last Wednesday. That was there 2 minutes ago. It's there now. And it's the same background awareness you've got. So in a way, you go through this whole trip with the music, whole trip with spirituality or whatever, and you always come back to what you was anyway, essentially. As St. Francis of Assisi said, what you're looking for is where you're looking from. So I'm a classic seeker. I'm always looking for some sound, for some spiritual state. I'm a seeker. I'm looking, I'm moving. And of course, all the time you're told in the great spiritual texts what you're looking for, you've already got, but it's right under your nose, and it takes the time you suddenly realize that. That doesn't mean to say the narrative doesn't have an importance. We create a narrative in our lives, you know. So I suppose in that ordinary conventional truth thing, I've learned without doubt it's good to be good. That's an important point. It is good to be good. And it's really obviously good not to be an arsehole. I have been an arsehole on occasion. The pain of being an arsehole is too great to bear. So it's easier to be good and not be an arsehole. When I'm an arsehole, it haunts me when I'm a selfish arsehole, you know.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make. And I think that, you know, just to come off that there, would you call yourself then a content person, John? Have you found, as cheesy as this sounds, have you found happiness? Because people can assume things, you know, look at your career, look at the bands you've been in, the levels of success you have. You might be like, oh, most people be like, oh yeah, John's, you know, he's having a great time. Of course he's happy. He's still on the road. He's doing all that. But if I was to ask you directly, are you a happy person? Have you found contentment? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say, I'll probably give you I would say yes, but I can qualify it. 20s, to generalise, the decade of my 20s was kind of very tricky. Ended up drinking drug problem, come out of it at 28. My 30s were really good. You know, my first marriage split up. God, that's not slagging anyone off or blaming anyone for anything. It split up. I'm on my own. I end up remarrying. And that period in my 30s, I got back to where I should have been or whatever before I was drinking and drugging. So that was fantastic. That was really good. And that was, as I always say to me, missus, that was before we had kids, when we were happy, you know. But so we had kids, and I'm joking. I get on with me boys. I play with them. I love them. So it's great. But I found through my 40s and 50s, it was just hard going sometimes, you know. You stand sober at that at the time. It's graft. You're a dad. You're putting one foot in front of the other. No matter what spin you put on it, you just have to be tough and keep going in life sometimes. Hey, and it wasn't like I had any huge hardship to do. Now I'm in my 60s with the benefit of hindsight. My boys have left home, so I've got a lot more space. So I can start a project like my community thing. You know, me and my missus can have some nice time together, and it's all lovely. And I've got a lot of space in my life. So I'm super content again, relatively speaking, as I was in my 30s. Bit of a long-winded answer, but that's it. But unless you're a kind of Buddha, even in the most sublime moment, there will be a slight, tiny element of dis-ease. That's the human existence. As my mate Billy used to say, we're here because we're not all there. That's why we're here. It's a transitional thing, being a human. And the thing about being a human, precious human life, as the Buddhists would say, is the potentiality for change. That's what it's all about.
Yeah,
Learning
man.
those lessons, that you're not to be an arsehole, and that you are not, you're a wave in the ocean, but you are the ocean. You're not just the wave.
Yeah.
So when you hurtle towards the beach, I'm gonna die, you start to have an element of, I will go back into the ocean. Anyway, I'll start making people sick if I keep talking that way.
Nah,
But
nah,
yeah.
I love it. I love it. And it's interesting to get that perspective. And where you are now, you're talking about, in your 60s now, you've been able to start this lovely community project, but also putting out this record. If you look back at where, all the studio time, all the experiences you've had, all the albums you've done, what does a brief history of now mean to you in that context compared to your previous body of work, compared to what you've done before? Again, it seems like to me, looking at you from the other end of a screen, you're pretty excited about the future and excited about this record.
Well, with this record, a little bit similar to Metal Box Rebuilt in dub, is it's going back to the beginning, but with the benefit of hindsight. That's what it is. So going back, redoing stuff from Metal Box, and also making a new album now. I think Cleopatra Records got that as well. They didn't give me any kind of brief, but I'm working with a wonderful guitarist, John Klein. He's got a real rock feel, great post-punk. He's the post-punk guy. A very smart guy, very creative, but technically very good. He's a smart guy. Music production, can make and edit videos and all sorts. So it's about going back to the beginning and having a chance to work with a great rock kind of guitarist again, and make stuff that's got a lot of guitar in it. And for want of a better term, it's real post-punk. This is post-punk music. I don't mind the label. That's essentially what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you talk about working with John there, obviously, the background there in the Banshees, and as an incredible musician. What have been some of the best experiences? What will be some of the memories? You'll have plenty from your days creating music, but in terms of working in the studio, in terms of doing this record, what are some of the best memories you have of maybe one or two of working with John on this record?
Right from the beginning, I guess, with Last Exit was the first track. So just this thing of getting together and, okay, this is to be making an album, and this is it. And I remember him like laughing because it's this super sort of, speeded up Public Image type bass line. It's kind of bass line, but just I wouldn't have been able to play a line like that in Public Image. But there's this really modal line, and then I'm just thinking, right, so that's lovely, but let's introduce some pedaling bass so he can come in with some chords. Let's get a chord progression going, And so I remember just this absolute joy and like, wow, we both were like, this is great, And the other one's The Wire. Yeah. He wanted to do The Wire, and I think he probably had a mind we could put it on the album. He certainly wanted to do that, maybe make a compilation album, of covers, maybe, as we were thinking about, or whatever. So we did Wire, and I thought, he mentioned The Fly, which I kind of vaguely remembered, and he played it. It was like, oh my God, it's really tricky because it's got a funny one-bar turnaround. And it's typical John. He loves everything, the complicated stuff. And I tried to, no, but you should maybe pick another one, John. It's a bit fiddly because I'm lazy. And so I had to learn the Islam, but it's really awkward one-bar changer. They're a very clever group. It's Colin Newman, wasn't it? Was one of the main guys in Wire. Was it Colin Newman? I think I'm trying
to think now. I'll have to find out.
I think it was a guy. I think it was. Anyway, I always get names muddled up and everything. But anyway, it's very.
There you go. Yes, you were right. You were right. I had to check as well. So it is. Yeah, Colin from Wire.
Yeah. So it's a very clever song, and it's got this weird one bar. So if you hear it, where you think the chorus is going to come in, it doesn't. It comes in a bar later or wherever it was. So that was a laugh as well. And there was stuff. I suppose a track like so there was a lot of fun and laughter, like with Masters of Time, because John, it's a kind of, I've built a fictional character in my head, but it's inspired by all these public schoolboy tossers that I've worked with, and so the lines, like, they're often lionized by these poor bloody working class kids from mill towns who stand at the stage door and all that, and they don't realize that exactly the lives these guys come from, that they're worshipping, and how they wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire, probably, you know. But I'm having a laugh with that. And I met John rolling up, and he really got it, you know. And he was very, as always, very helpful, just changing one or two of the phrases to make it very kind of catchy, you know. So that was good. And there was something else I was going to say. There was one or two things we just really pushed to the limit, sort of tempo wise. There was something else I was going to say, so it's escaped my mind now. Before that. Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. So I surprised him with just how rock and roll, in a way, I wanted it to be. And it came to that driving through the night, which I've not told anyone this, but it's about being on the highway with my baby kind of vibe. So it's really corny. And I've never sung the words rock and roll, but I sing about it's rock and roll. And he was really surprised I wanted to do that. And the funny thing was, I said to him, John, guess where it was written? You would have thought it was written on Route 66. I wrote it in my head coming back from Gaddishills on the A7 from Scotland down into, like, in the middle of the night. It was in my head. It's the most un-rock and roll terrain. In the middle of the night, you've got to really focus hard. In the winter, you've got to focus hard not to crash the car, you know. So anyway, it was written on the A7. And so I sing about rock and roll, and I'm on the highway with that kind of absolute cliches. And I said I want to do it to once. I may be cancelled when people hear it. It's a risk I'll take, because I just wanted to do it, you know. Yeah,
and it feels like there's a lot of really interesting, kind of thought process going into this record and the promotion side of it, because you led with Last Exit, you mentioned there, as a single, as the first kind of punch there, to get people's attention. Lots of really creative ideas, that spoken word punchy vibe to that, and it feels like not an attack on social media and the modern age, but I wanted to ask you why you decided to go with Last Exit, and kind of create that really strong visual for it as well that you put out, before we talk about some of the other tracks on the record.
Well, yeah, some people, what you said there is really valid about social media. One or two people, some bloke on Twitter said, "Hey, Greg, great, it's a great song, but you're attacking America. Why don't you attack the UK as well?" And it's like, well, actually, I'm not attacking America. Do you think at 64, I'm 65 next week, do you think I'm going to write a song telling everyone how wicked America is because they don't know? I'm not going to bother doing that. I mean, America, or Western, most of those digital platforms are America. So when we talk about the West, we're often talking about America. You and I, we're both formed by American culture as much as anything else. American culture. It's Californification, call it what you will. It's gone on for years, So we're kind of formed by that. And it's and it's ghastly, but it's terribly exciting as well. And it's about the West. It's about samsara. So my whole life is about dopamine, cake, sex, coffee, the going on shitting yourself on stage, but it's a marvelous fear. Dopamine, chocolate, just dopamine all the time. And so that's what the video's about. Dopamine, dopamine release. And that's that's it. And it's about that. It's about samsara, the illusory sort of state Buddhists sort of refer to, that we live in, which is scary and horrible and always disappointing, but sickly exciting as well. So that's kind of what it's about. It's not sort of like, this is wicked and we have to stop this and go back to a different way of living, because you're never going to have nirvana on earth, for sure. So I'm just observing it, and it's like, wow, this is a trip, but I'm aware it's a movie. And the movie's on a screen, and I am, in a way, that hologram or that background consciousness, and I can switch the movie off. I can be the next video. I can be I am. Before I'm this, before I'm that. I don't have to you sit back in that being. You don't have to get pulled into samsara,
Yeah, it's interesting because it feels like you're reflecting. It's more like a social commentary than it is direct criticism. You're commentating.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It'd be really prissy to sort of, how dare you, you're a horrible place, because nobody can throw stones. No country can throw stones in this world. You know,
Yeah.
some countries are more culpable than others because they've got more power in the situation. But it's nothing really. It's as much about the West anyway. But you can't. It's so hard to separate the West from America. America represents the West and the West's interests, you know,
Yeah.
or has done up to this point. Maybe that's changing. But as I said, nearly all these platforms, apart maybe from TikTok, which I think is Chinese, they're American. And by the way, I don't really get into TikTok, but I'm totally addicted to YouTube Shorts.
Yeah.
Totally addicted to YouTube. Dopamine. Lovely sweet cat, lovely sweet dog, bear attacking a man, you know, plane crashing, a beautiful smiling old lady, you know, kind of mourning her husband, and it's very sad, but it's dopamine, you know.
Yeah, and it is interesting. Again, it's an interesting reflection on your part there, John. And before we do the plugging questions and the rounding up, I wanted to sort of talk through a couple of other tracks on the record. Obviously, you've got the sort of I Am on there, which has that sort of funk element to it. And then you've got like a track like Socially Functioning Psycho, which has that more kind of industrial side of it. I wonder, like, was the intention...
Do you read that? Oh, that's interesting. Do you read that? Because John loves industrial stuff.
Yeah.
But for me... There's I'll tell you my two dark horse tracks that I really like.
Yeah.
Wrong Side of the Line.
Yeah.
And Psychopath. And for me, Psychopath's more Visconti. You give me a funny look when I said that. To me, it's more of a pop song than industrial. You know,
I understand that, but I think in terms of
he loves industrial. You know,
It is. I think there's a lot of crossover. Really, I think people industrial gets a bad rap, but actually there's a lot of pop elements in it. You know, so I understand what you're saying there. Obviously, it's your material, but what I was trying to get at was it feels like a little bit of a chronicle of all the genres that you've touched upon in your musical career. Again, your post-punks, your electronica, you know, your alternative, your general alternative, your punk. So was the intention to kind of meld and mesh all of your musical experiences and interests on this record, stuff that you're into musically? Because it feels like a bit of a collage of everything you've done.
Well, I was more focused on like making a rocky post-punk record, but I can't help but bring dub elements in. I just can't help it. And there is a thing, I suppose, you're doing it because you want to kind of balance it as well. And dub, when I think of dub, I think an ambient, I think of space. So something like I Am's got this very spacious production, because something like rock kind of industrial can be quite claustrophobic, you know, and in your face. So if you have ambient dub, it kind of opens things out and it makes a nice contrast, you know. So there's even a bit of country, and you know, with I forget the name of the track. It's that one where I'm singing, "This is the heart, the rescue revolution. This is the heart, the love that changes all, liberation." I forget the name of the track, but anyway, it's quite country and western kind of Appalachian sounding. So there's even a bit of a country element in there, you know.
Yeah, it feels like maybe I'm contradicting myself here, because actually what you're saying is it feels like you've challenged yourself a bit. You've pushed yourself in new ways as an artist with this. And I wonder if I'm right in that. Do you feel like you've challenged yourself? Because you could have gone in there and you could have done, you know, your stuff by the numbers, the dub stuff, for example, but actually you've pushed yourself to a bit of country and western. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So I've mixed the stuff in, so you balance it. You're quite right there. You want to kind of use some of the familiar brushstrokes that you use, but at the same time, you're thinking, right, I'm thinking, got to deal with Cleopatra Records, marvellous. They're a proper label, so it's an opportunity. They'll promote properly. That's all good. And I'm working with John Klein, so let's really do it. You know, let's take advantage and make something. You know, here something really special, and set our stall out. And you might end up falling, but I haven't done it for a while. The last time I set my stall like this with an album was probably in the mid-90s. Yeah,
you know.
So
and if you said to me, well, why is that? Well, because I was with a major record company. I've done stuff for major record companies, but only a few things. And when I have done over the last 20 odd years, they want a dub record or they want a genre record, which is fine. totally at home with that. But this was like, let's push ourselves to the limit. You know, if you have a workout, I'm quite lazy, but as times you do a workout, you will push yourself. You just want to go a little bit beyond and push yourself that bit harder and come out and think, or they say when you come off a football pitch, I didn't leave anything out there. I didn't leave anything on the pitch, or in fact, I left it all. I've come out, I've left it all on the pitch. Any more to give? I gave 101%, you know. For this record, it was like, let's give it 101%. Really have a go.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's great to hear, you know, and I think that will be seen out on the road, and I think that's my last couple of questions. Then, you know, is there a message for the people that have got behind you through your career, people that are going to be coming out to see you on this tour, maybe some new fans as well that are kind of maybe just discovering you through this stuff? What is your message for the people that have supported you, John, through your career and will continue to do so as you go on to this next chapter of your life and your musical adventure, so to speak?
Well, it's lovely. When you go on stage, there's a familiarity with the people, so you feel a genuine warmth everywhere you go, which is lovely. And I never want to lose that or take that for granted. I think I'll always balance the shows out with, we might do something new. But I know, you know, in the past, I've been quite brave and gone off and done very left field shows, and people get upset that you're not doing past repertoire. But the last few years, if you don't make a good show, you won't eat, you know? So you've got to do a really good show, and you've got to have a degree of not popularism exactly, but, you know, of appeal. You've got to have a fairly broad-based appeal. So that won't change. And so but as we introduce new stuff, there'll be a demarcation line between the metal boxing dub shows that, you know, is a very specific set with real different arrangement. Yet again, with John Klein, obviously. But we'll be introducing another set with that, where we'll be doing some of this new material from the album, as well as some of our past stuff.
Fantastic. So it's an exciting time for people to come and check out those shows, which is awesome. Last question then, John. It's basically testing if I've done my job properly. Is there anything that you would like to plug and promote before we finish up today that I've missed?
No, not really. Very happy with the chat and with the album. Oh, yeah, the one thing I'd say, the dark horse for me is Wrong Side of the Line. I think that's the kind of straight. He hasn't got like a proper normal verse chorus thing. I love that. And John did. It was written for a famous football manager, and I don't think he's a friend of mine, the manager. I don't think he ever heard the backing track, but we sent it to him. I couldn't make it down to put down my guide vocal, and I'm the football expert, but John did one. So just to have a vocal melody there. So I was going to redo it, because obviously I'm the football expert. And then I heard what John had done, and it's like, wait a minute. No. I love this. This is fantastic words. This is brilliant. Let's keep this. And I said, it's a dark horse. So I did a bit of spoken word on it, you know, but that's my dark horse. But no, the thing I'd plug, anyone in the London area, especially South London, especially South West London, get yourself down to Tuned In, our community thing. If you're a beginner or experienced, haven't played for years, it's designed to get you back out into life. Younger people come, men, women, everybody's included. Whoever wants to come, you come down there. It's totally inclusive. Every other Monday at Merton Arts Space, Wimbledon Library. On Tuesdays, me and John do a studio session. You can come in and write a song with us.
Wonderful.
Or you can write a song, and we'll play on it. So we're doing that, and we've got a show we've been in residency at Cannons Park in Mitcham all week, and we're finishing off with a festival, a little concert, open air concert later today. So that's become like a club. Everyone that has become my friend. It's wonderful.
Yeah, brilliant. So Tuned In, fantastic. I'll definitely plug that as much as I possibly can. Sounds like a wonderful initiative to create community around music. So fantastic, John. And thank you so much for making the time for me this afternoon. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
Thanks, Dom. Thank you, mate.